A bold move, Canada's energy earthquake. The world watched in astonishment as Canada made an unprecedented move. In a decision that caught everyone off guard, the nation took a step that would have far-reaching consequences. The nation abruptly shut down its $103.3 billion oil export pipeline to the United States. This pipeline had been a critical artery for North American energy, and its closure was nothing short of seismic. This decision sent shockwaves through the global energy market. Investors scrambled, markets plummeted, and the world was left to grapple with the immediate fallout. It was a decision that would reshape alliances and ignite economic and political turmoil. Governments convened emergency meetings and diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent communications. The pipeline, once a symbol of North American energy interdependence, became a flashpoint in a rapidly changing world. Its closure marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new geopolitical landscape. This was not just an energy story, it was a narrative that touched on environmental concerns, economic strategies, and the future of global energy policies. It was a story about power, security, and the fight for a sustainable future. Environmental activists hailed the move, while industry leaders warned of dire economic consequences. Canada's decision reverberated across borders, impacting businesses, consumers, and governments worldwide. Gas prices soared, and energy policies were hastily re-evaluated. The shutdown exposed the vulnerabilities of a globalized energy system. It highlighted the risks of over-reliance on a single source, and the need for diversified energy strategies. It underscored the growing tensions between national interests and global cooperation. Countries were forced to reconsider their energy alliances and strategies. The move sent a clear message. Canada was charting its own course. It was a bold declaration of independence in the energy sector. No longer content to be simply an energy supplier to its southern neighbor, Canada signaled its intention to diversify its partnerships and prioritize its own national interests. New alliances were on the horizon, and the global energy map was being redrawn. The age of energy dependence was over. The world was entering a new phase where energy independence and sustainability were paramount. A new era, marked by competition, uncertainty, and the urgent need for energy independence had begun. The future of energy was being rewritten, and Canada was at the forefront of this transformation. The impact on the United States was immediate and severe. The sudden economic shockwaves reverberated through every sector, leaving no corner of the country untouched. Oil prices skyrocketed, sending shockwaves through the economy. The surge in oil prices was not just a minor inconvenience. It was a major disruption that affected everything from transportation to manufacturing. Consumers faced soaring gasoline prices, putting a strain on household budgets. Families found themselves having to make tough choices, cutting back on non-essential spending to afford the rising cost of fuel. Businesses grappled with increased transportation costs, squeezing already thin margins. The logistics and transportation sectors were particularly hard hit, as the cost of moving goods across the country surged. The stock market, a barometer of economic confidence, plummeted. Investors reacted with panic, selling off stocks and causing a sharp decline in market values. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged 850 points, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq tumbled 3.1%. This dramatic drop reflected the widespread fear and uncertainty gripping the financial markets. The energy-intensive sectors of the economy were hit particularly hard. Industries that rely heavily on energy, such as manufacturing and construction, faced skyrocketing costs that threatened their operations. Airlines, facing a sudden surge in fuel costs, were forced to raise ticket prices, impacting travel and tourism. The higher costs led to a decline in travel bookings, further straining the already struggling airline industry. Manufacturing, heavily reliant on affordable energy, saw production costs soar, threatening jobs and economic output. Factories had to reassess their production strategies, and some even faced the prospect of shutting down. The ripple effects were felt across the country, from bustling cities to rural communities, as businesses and consumers alike struggled to adapt to the new energy reality. The economic landscape was rapidly changing, and everyone had to find ways to cope. Adding to the economic turmoil was the specter of rolling blackouts. The instability in the energy supply created a new layer of uncertainty for both businesses and households. States heavily dependent on Canadian hydroelectricity, including New York, California, and Michigan, faced the prospect of energy rationing and potential blackouts during peak hours. This added pressure on already strained resources and infrastructure. The sudden loss of a reliable energy source exposed the fragility of the U.S. power grid and raised concerns about the country's ability to meet its energy needs. The situation underscored the urgent need for a more resilient and diversified energy strategy to safeguard against future disruptions. Canada's bold move was driven by a confluence of factors. National security emerged as a top priority, prompting the government to tighten border controls and reassess its immigration policies. The pipeline shutdown was part of a broader strategy to strengthen Canada's sovereignty and reduce its vulnerability to external pressures. Economic diversification was another key driver. Canada, long reliant on exporting its vast natural resources to the United States, saw an opportunity to forge new partnerships and reduce its economic dependence on its southern neighbor. The government actively pursued deals with Europe and Asia, securing lucrative contracts to supply oil to energy-hungry markets in China and India. Furthermore, Canada was increasingly focused on managing its resources for the long term. The government emphasized the need for environmental sustainability and responsible resource development. The pipeline shutdown, while controversial, was seen as a necessary step to protect Canada's pristine landscapes and ensure a sustainable energy future. New partners on the global stage, Europe and Asia, step in. Canada's decision to halt oil exports to the United States created a vacuum in the global energy market, a vacuum quickly filled by eager buyers in Europe and Asia. This sudden shift in the energy landscape was not just about filling a gap, it was about seizing an opportunity. European and Asian countries, always on the lookout for more stable and diversified energy sources, saw this as a golden chance to strengthen their energy security. European nations, seeking to reduce their reliance on Russian energy, welcomed the opportunity to secure a reliable supply of Canadian oil. This move was part of a broader strategy to diversify their energy sources and reduce geopolitical risks. The European Union in particular saw this as a step towards greater energy independence and resilience. China and India, with their rapidly growing economies and insatiable thirst for energy, saw Canada as a crucial partner in fueling their continued growth. For these Asian giants, securing a steady supply of oil was not just about meeting current demands, but also about planning for future expansion. Their burgeoning industries and expanding middle classes required vast amounts of energy, and Canadian oil was a perfect fit. This shift in energy flows had profound geopolitical implications. It wasn't just about who was buying and selling oil, it was about the balance of power on the global stage. Energy security became a central theme in international relations, influencing everything from trade agreements to diplomatic alliances. Europe, traditionally reliant on the United States for security and energy, began to chart a more independent course, forging closer ties with Canada and other energy-producing nations. This newfound independence allowed European countries to negotiate from a position of strength, reshaping their foreign policies and economic strategies. The Asian giants, China and India, saw their influence grow as they became key players in the global energy landscape. Their ability to secure energy resources from Canada and other countries bolstered their economic growth and enhanced their geopolitical clout. This shift also allowed them to play a more assertive role in international forums and negotiations. Canada's move had inadvertently accelerated a shift in global power dynamics. By redirecting its oil exports, Canada not only found new markets but also played a pivotal role in reshaping the global energy map. This realignment had far-reaching consequences affecting everything from global trade patterns to international alliances. The United States, once the undisputed leader in the global energy market, was forced to confront the reality of its diminishing influence. As other nations stepped up to fill the void, the U.S. had to rethink its energy policies and strategies. This decline in energy dominance also had domestic implications, affecting everything from job markets to political debates. The era of American energy dominance was fading, replaced by a multipolar world where energy security and economic power were up for grabs. In this new landscape, countries had to navigate a complex web of relationships and dependencies, making strategic decisions that would shape their futures for decades to come. The global energy market had become a battleground for influence and power, with new players emerging and old ones adapting to the changing tides. A trade war looms. The U.S. response. The U.S. response to Canada's pipeline shutdown was swift and furious. President Trump, known for his aggressive trade policies, threatened to impose a 100% tariff on Canadian automobiles, a move that would cripple Canada's auto industry and send shockwaves through the integrated North American economy. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, however, refused to back down. He rejected U.S. pressure, asserting Canada's sovereignty and right to control its own resources. The Trudeau government countered U.S. threats with retaliatory tariffs on key American goods, escalating tensions between the two longtime allies. The trade war threatened to spill over into other areas of cooperation. Canada announced a review of its $13.2 billion deal to purchase F-35 fighter jets from the United States, exploring alternatives such as the Swedish Saab Gripen E. The move signaled a potential decoupling of the two countries' defense industries, further straining the relationship.